It's that time of the year again when the air crackles with anticipation and wallets switch nervously as the budget season is upon us. While the rest of the world might be getting up for Valentine's Day, India's got a different kind of love affair brewing. The love affair with its annual budget. But this year is slightly different. This year, the grand spectacle won't be a full-fledged union budget but a trailer sorts called an interim budget. With the Lok Sabha elections looming large, the current government can't unveil its full economic vision. Instead, they've presented a vote on account, a temporary financial lifeline to keep the nation ticking until the new government takes oath. So instead of grand pronouncements and policy fireworks, they've played a strategic balancing act. In this video, we will see the major changes and announcements of the recently announced interim budget of 2024. We will then dissect and understand the breakup of expenditures and receipts and ponder upon the most concerning segment, which is the glide path to fiscal deficit. Lastly, we will end with the sectors that will get impacted post the budget, followed by significant takeaways from this budget. Are you ready to decipher the code? Let the interim budget games begin. You're watching Informed Investor, an initiative Research and Ranking. The Finance Minister Srimati Nirmala Sitharamanji presented her sixth budget on February 1st, which lasted for about 58 minutes, making it a shortest budget speech. In context, the longest ever speech was delivered by her, lasting for 162 minutes, approximately 2 hours 40 minutes. And since it was an interim budget with no big bang announcements, it was kept short, setting the tone for the next few months until the full-fledged budget is announced in the month of June, after the formation of the new government by Lok Sabha elections. However, the budget did continue its focus on infrastructure upgrades, fiscal consolidation, and building connectivity across the country. So without any further ado, let's look at some key announcements made during the budget. The first and the most significant announcement was towards the capex push. Capital expenditure takes center stage as a pivotal driver for India's economic growth, which is aiming to be a 7 trillion economy by 2030. Over the last 3 years, and particularly after the pandemic, the government has consistently hiked the allocation for capital expenditure. And this budget had a 11.1% increase of allocation towards capital expenditure, amounting to a massive 11.11 lakh crore, which translates to a 3.4% GDP. However, this increase of 11.1% is at a slower rate compared to the 33% increase last year. This was done to achieve the broader goal of fiscal consolidation, which we will talk in detail later. A point to note is that capital expenditure has a multiplier effect, which means every 1 rupee spent on capex has a multiplier effect of rupees 2.45 rupees in the immediate year and rupees 3.14 worth of effect in the following years. This is huge and outlines how an initial injection of money into an economy ripples through and creates a larger overall increase in economic activity. Talking about infrastructure, the government will focus on substantive development of all forms of infrastructure, namely physical, digital, and social infrastructure. As you can see in the chart, there has been a significant improvement in physical infrastructure, with the number of airports, national highways, aircraft, and cargo movement all seeing a commendable increase. While there were no significant mentions about the allocation to railways other than allocating 2.55 lakh crores, an increase of 6.25% from the previous year's allocation, Finance Minister did mention that 3 major railway corridor programs of energy, mineral and cement corridors, port connectivity corridors and high traffic density corridors under the PM Gati Shakti will be implemented to improve logistics, efficiency and reduce cost. Furthermore, 40,000 normal train bogies will be converted into high-speed Vande Bharat ones. On the aviation front, with the sector flying high with record-breaking orders of aircrafts, the focus will be on the expansion of existing airports and comprehensive development of new airports under the UDAN scheme. Embracing sustainability and reaching the ambitious target of net zero by 2070, this budget doubles down on its green growth efforts with initiatives aimed at improving the ecosystem for electric vehicles and biomanufacturing. Addressing EV adoption barriers, the 2024 budget focuses on expanding the electrical vehicle ecosystem. With the EV penetration in single digits as of today, a significant investment aims to incentivize and boost charging infrastructure, resulting in nationwide adoption of electric vehicles. Notably, the push for rooftop solarization is set to provide 1 crore households with 300 units of free electricity monthly. This is estimated to save households about 15 to 18,000 annually on electricity bills, indirectly boosting their income as well. The budget continues to support growth and productivity in agriculture through interventions in financial assistance, crop insurance, and modern storage houses. In terms of rural economy, there was a push towards housing. The government is close to achieving the target of 3 crore houses under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Additionally, 2 more crore houses will be constructed in the next 5 years. Furthermore, the MGNREGS scheme will receive 86,000 crore towards generating employment in the rural sector. A major announcement includes the establishment of 1 lakh crore rupees of a corpus dedicated to fostering innovation. The fund comprises various financial instruments such as a 50-year interest-free loan and long-term financing or refinancing options with extended tenures at low or nil interest rates. This move is designed to incentivize the private sector to intensify their efforts in research and innovation, particularly in emerging and high-potential domains called as sunrise sectors. The government is putting a spotlight on tourism development and infrastructure too. States are being encouraged to undertake development of iconic tourist centers to attract business and promote opportunities for local entrepreneurship. Moreover, states have been granted long-term interest-free loans to be provided to states to encourage development. In terms of investment promotion, the government has achieved foreign direct investment inflow of up to $596 billion from 2014 up to 2023, with continued efforts to attract more foreign direct investment. Moving on to direct taxes, or in other words, income tax. Despite expectations and hopes for a tax relief from the middle class, especially with the budget preceding the Lok Sabha elections, Finance Minister opted to keep tax rates and slabs unchanged under both the new and old tax regimes. However, there was a positive outcome from the following statements. First being, the average processing time of returns has been reduced from 93 days in the year 2013 to 14 to a mere 10 days this year, making refunds faster. Second is in respect to tax demands. Since there is a large number of petty, non-verified, non-reconciled or disputed direct tax demands, the government made an announcement to waive small tax demands up to 25,000 till fiscal year 15. This move is expected to benefit almost a crore of taxpayers. Moving on to our segment is looking at the receipts and expenditure for the current year and the next fiscal year. If you look at the chart on your screen, in the breakup of receipts or income, the non-tax revenue surged to 3.75 lakh crore compared to 3 lakh budgeted on the back of receiving higher dividend from the RBI and public sector banks. In fact, the government received a massive 87,416 crore in the form of dividends from the RBI. Net tax revenue came in lower at 23.2 lakh crore as per the revised estimates. In terms of disinvestment, the government had ambitious targets of achieving 61,000 crores. However, it only achieved 10,000 crores so far as privatization plans for Concor, Shipping Corporation and Bharat Petroleum are delayed. The revised target is set for 30,000 crore for the next few months. For fiscal year 25, on the back of robust GST and tax collection, the government expects almost a 12% growth to 26 lakh crore. This investment is expected to be 50,000 crore, an increase of 66% from the revised estimates. Now when we look at the expenditures, revenue expenditures, which consists of revenue expenses to meet its operating demands like salaries, wages, pensions, subsidies and interest payments, are expected to rise 3.2% to 36.5 lakh crore. Capital expenditure, as discussed earlier, is at 11.11 lakh crore for fiscal year 25, an increase of 16.93% from the revised estimates. So overall, while total income for fiscal year 25 is at 30.8 lakh crore, the total expenditure is estimated to be 47.65 lakh crore, creating a fiscal deficit or borrowings of 16.85 lakh crore, equivalent to 5.1% of GDP. With a decrease of 2.84%, it will add to the fiscal consolidation goal of the government. Another interesting fact is that the nominal GDP growth is pegged at 10.5% in fiscal year 25 to 3.27 trillion. Fiscal deficit essentially shows the amount of money that the government borrows from the market. It does so to bridge the gap between its expenses and the income. We do know that bringing down the fiscal deficit is crucial because a large deficit means the country isn't able to manage its income and expenses effectively. The fiscal deficit for the current fiscal is expected to settle at 5.8%, outperforming the budget estimate of 5.9%. Looking ahead, the union government sets an ambitious target of achieving fiscal deficit of 5.1% for fiscal year 25. All of these positive factors have led the fiscal deficit to be lower. These include higher tax buoyancy, increased dividend income from RBI and public sector undertakings, and the modest incremental growth in overall central expenditure. Though the divestment are revised downwards to 30,000 crore from 50,000 crore, higher non-tax revenues including dividends from RBI and state-run banks are expected to offset the revenue shortfall from disinvestments. Overall, the government has done a fantastic job managing its finances and bringing its fiscal deficit down. Interim budget for 24-25 firmly conveys the government's commitment to its fiscal consolidation goals set against a backdrop of healthy economic growth. It's definitely a big positive that the government has stuck to its fiscal consolidation. To understand how the government will manage its finances, in simple words, let's look at this pie chart. Considering the government gets a rupee in revenue, here is a breakup of how much it comes from different sources. Out of the 1 rupee that the government earns, income tax makes up 19 paise, followed by GST and taxes at 18 paise. Corporation tax takes up 17 paise, and more often than not, the government isn't able to generate the entire amount that it needs to finance its expenditure through taxes and resorts to market borrowings. Therefore, borrowing and other liabilities comprise 28 paise in the overall pie. Now, the government also has to spend the money on big investments, infrastructure, and expenses like salaries, etc. On the expenditure front, interest payments on past borrowing forms the biggest chunk, comprising 20 paise along with states' share of taxes and duties. This is followed by central sector schemes at 16 paise. Centrally sponsored schemes as well as defense expenditure is at 8 paise. The government spends around 6 paise on various subsidies, while 9 paise is spent on other expenditure forms. Before we conclude, let's look at the allocation to different ministries. The Ministry of Defence received the highest allocation of 6.2 lakh crore with an increase of 4.3% from last year. Second came in Ministry of Road Transport, Highways, followed by Railways at 2.78 and 2.55 lakh crore respectively. In terms of percentage increase in allocation, Ministry of Communications got a boost of 11.8%, followed by Ministry of Rural Development at 10.6%. So what are the sectors that are expected to be benefited from the budget? The government is set to introduce a housing scheme specifically designed for the middle class, facilitating their ability to purchase or construct their own homes. The emphasis on rural housing program is expected to yield numerous positive effects on the economy given the interconnectedness of various ancillary industries with the housing sector. This initiative is poised to benefit the home loan market and the housing market. To facilitate the adoption of rooftop solar program, the government plans to involve state-run power companies. This collaboration aims to bolster efforts in encouraging households to embrace rooftop solar installations. The budget has earmarked a capex of 2.55 lakh crore for the Indian Railways, which is marginally higher than the 2.4 lakh crore, an increase of 5.8% announced in the previous year's budget. Railway sector will be benefited with the huge investments. Companies engaged in manufacturing Vande Bharat trains and railway-focused companies are poised to benefit from these initiatives. The budget has a focus on promoting tourism by incentivizing states to develop tourism destinations, thereby creating local opportunities. States will be granted interest-free loans to facilitate promotion of tourism in their respective areas. These initiatives are anticipated to be advantageous for companies within the travel, tourism, and hospitality sectors. The government has raised allocations for the defense sector in the interim budget with its aim to strengthen national security and boost local procurement. Of the total capital outlay of Rs 11.11 lakh crore, the defense sector has been allocated Rs 6.2 lakh crore, an increase of 4.4% from the fiscal year budgeted allocation. The defense sector and companies operating in this domain will be benefited with these initiatives. In conclusion, as India aims to be the third largest economy with a GDP of $5 trillion in the next 3 years and eventually reaching $7 trillion by 2030, it reflects the ambitions and signs of confidence. But are these realistic targets? The Reserve Bank of India recently bumped up the GDP growth of India to 7% from the earlier 6.5% for fiscal year 24. And as per a report by the Department of Economic Affairs in January 2024, if the prognosis for fiscal year 25 turns out to be right, it will mark the fourth year post-pandemic that the Indian economy has grown at over 7%. Interestingly, post the pandemic, this will be the fourth year that the Indian economy will have grown at or over 7%. In context, India grew at 9.1% in fiscal year 22, followed by 7.2% and 7% in fiscal year 24. With the Finance Ministry projecting another 7% growth in fiscal year 25, it can come closer to its goal of achieving a developed country by 2047. However, there are challenges that persist and it's not going to be easy. The Finance Ministry has also noted 3 trends that could decide the future and shape India's economy. These are deglobalization, which basically means a world that is less interconnected, with the idea to diversify supply chains and reduce dependencies and linkages to certain countries, like the ongoing China Plus One strategy in place. Second is artificial intelligence, which is the future trend. And since India is world famous for its IT services commanding a revenue market share of 35% in the global market, while there is a huge opportunity, there is also an inherent risk to job creation and services trend. The third and the most important is energy transition. The pressure to move away from fossil fuels and switch to greener energy is key. While India has ambitious plans to reach 500 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030 and more importantly export, how India navigates through this journey will be key. Having said that, this is me Rahalasan signing off. Have a great day and stay safe.
Did you like watching this video? Then download our app Informed Investor to watch more such informative and interesting videos.
Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.